All right, so I'll get started here. Scott Webster. I am one of the special education coordinators. I am at Heritage Elementary, Tusing Elementary, and Ridgeview Junior High. And I'm doing this in partnership with Jessica Goodrich, who is one of our school psychologists. She is at the preschool and also Ridgeview Junior High. And then Malika Jefferson, who is our interim director of student services, will be hopping on here at some point as well. And we'll give it a couple of minutes while everyone kind of gets settled in, and we'll get started. I'm going to drop the first thing that I'm going to put in here is and it looks like Jessica's going to present the scan as well. The link there is the link to our pre-survey. So if everyone could please, when you get a chance, if you could open the link either through the QR code or through the link that I posted, we would greatly appreciate that. And just so that everyone is aware, this session is being recorded and it'll be posted through the district webpage. It is a public forum. We'll not be answering any student-specific questions in this session or in the chat. If you do have a student-specific question, feel free to email either one of us directly and we can direct it to the appropriate person, or reach out to your student's teacher who can direct that information to the appropriate special education coordinator for the building. And then if you could please complete the pre-session survey before we get started. It only takes a few minutes and it helps us better understand the needs of your families. And like I said, it's posted as the scan, and also it's the link, the very first link that's posted in the chat. And we will go ahead and get started. So again, my name's Scott Webster, and I am one of the special education coordinators for the district. I am working with students at Heritage, Tusing, and Ridgeview Junior High. And also on this session with me is Jessica Goodrich. She is one of our school psychologists. She works a couple days a week at the preschool, and then she is at Ridgeview Junior High as well. So we will go ahead and get started. So the mission of the Student Services Department is to provide safe and inclusive learning environment where all students have the opportunity to succeed. And our purpose is to provide educators and families with information about the whole child by pursuing and completing evaluations to develop plans to help ensure that students are able to receive a free and appropriate education regardless of their disability. And then as a district, we will cultivate academic excellence by engaging all students in relevant and rich learning experiences that prepare them for career, college, and life, provide modern facilities that are physically safe and offer diverse opportunities for all students, and ensure operating efficiency to be financially accountable to our community, maximize resources, and ensure that we are lean and efficient, and be pillars of our community by relentlessly pursuing opportunities to engage with all residents. So the topic for tonight's presentation is on the parent and family role in the special education process. So we're kind of giving you the perspective. I tend to deal more with the IEPs themselves. Jessica tends to deal more with the evaluation. So we're kind of giving you both perspectives on what that looks like from our perspectives. So why do parents and families matter? So you're equal partners in the special education process. This is not the school controls everything. We want and need your input. Your insights and advocacy directly affect your child's success. They are only with the school-based team for 6 to 7 hours a day. They're with you for the rest of the time. They're with you on the weekends. We understand that you know your child best, and you have unique insights as to what they may be able to do, what they may not be able to do, where their struggles may lie, and that information is valuable for us. And the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act IDEA ensures their participation at every stage. So we want to make sure that you are active and engaged members of the process. So these are some kind of key terms here in education. We like to use a lot of acronyms. So these are kind of some of the more common ones that you'll see. Free appropriate public education. Also, the acronym FAPE. That's how we're educating your child. The least restrictive environment. That is, we as a district have a responsibility to try to set your child up to be successful in the environment that is least restrictive to them. The document that kind of leads all of our discussions is the Individualized Education Program, IEP. We also like to advocate for parental participation. We like it when you attend meetings, when you're active and you engage with the team, the staff, and let us know what you're seeing at home and kind of where we need to focus our attention. And procedural safeguards. So Ohio has this amazing 40+ page document that we will share at least yearly with you, that you can read, as time allows. It's an interesting read if you're into it, and it outlines kind of your rights in the special education process.
Okay, so this is kind of more my portion. So before you get to the IEP, you first have to go through the referral and then evaluation process. And so what does that look like? I know Malika and Allison touched on this a little bit in the previous EmpowerEd presentation that they did, but parents or staff members can request an evaluation in writing or verbally to their teachers, an administrator in the building, anyone in the district, indicating your concerns about your child. I do say that it is best to follow up of any verbal request with a written request, so that way it ensures it gets to your school psychologist, because that starts our 30-day timeline. So then we have those 30 days to come together, determine if we suspect a disability, and plan for your your student's evaluation. When we have those meetings, we love to hear not just what you're concerned about. Of course, we want to hear what you're concerned about, because why else would we be having this discussion about a possible evaluation? But we also want to hear about your child's strengths. What do they do well? How do they learn best? Are they more visual? Do they learn best when they have, checklists? Like what are you doing at home that you see success with, and what makes them feel successful? What are they interested in? We want to know your child, all aspects of your child. We talk about the whole child approach in special education, and that's really, we want to hear it from the very beginning, the whole child. But then, of course, we want to hear about what's challenging for your student. What are they really struggling with? Are there any medical concerns that have kind of brought you to this conversation? And then any developmental concerns that you may have about your child, because anything that has happened, even when they were, little ones, before they got to the school age part of things, could be significant in that storytelling process to determine where we go from there. With that, early identification does tend to lead to better outcomes and support for children. So even if you have preschool age children and you're concerned, preschool starts at age 3. So even if you have concerns about your child's development when they're 3 to 5, before they ever get to that kindergarten start point, please feel free to reach out to anyone at the preschool for that, because then we can try to see if there are some things we can support them with at the preschool level, because we do have that special needs preschool available in Pickerington. And the earlier they get support, the better outcomes we tend to see. So then what comes next? So we have to have your consent in order to evaluate, but not just consent. We don't want you to just sign on the dotted line and let us do our thing. It has to be informed consent. And so sending blanket emails saying, templates that say this, please consider this my consent to evaluate your child. It unfortunately isn't the most helpful, because we have forms and procedures that we have to go to through the state of Ohio. So what does informed consent look like? That means that before you sign on the dotted line, we want you to be a part of what's called a planning meeting. And so we will go through, if you're at the whether you're at the preschool or the school age, it might look a little different, but we're going to go through a document and we're going to talk about what areas do we want to investigate to look into for your child. And we want you to be informed about what that looks like. So ask us questions if you're ever confused. We sit through tons of meetings every day, every week. So for us, it gets a little routine. And sometimes we forget what might be confusing. So always feel free to stop us and say, okay, I heard you say adaptive behavior. What does adaptive behavior mean? What does that look like for my child at this age? Because it might look different, whether it's preschool, K to 5, 5 to 6, or 7th grade and up. What does a behavior assessment look like? Please ask those questions so we can have those conversations, because it's an open conversation. You are a part. We may have our planning form drafted for that meeting to make things go a little more efficiently, but we want your input, and we can change that form as we go. We're working as a team to make that plan for your child's evaluation. So even after you signed consent, we're in the middle of the evaluation. We value your input. If you're thinking after we've had that planning meeting and you're waiting for that evaluation team report meeting where we go over the results of your evaluation, please feel free to email your school psychologist or any team member and say, hey, I thought of this. Can we talk about this? Or this new concern came up. Those planning forms, we can change them at any stage of the evaluation to include more information or different disability categories. So always feel free to make sure we're communicating, because we want to know. And the more we know, the better we can serve your child's educational needs and figure out what those needs might be. From there, you participate in that eligibility meeting where we determine if your student is eligible for special education services. It happens every now and again. We get the question of, well, what if I don't agree with the evaluation? That's okay. We are a team. Ultimately, your district rep will have some say about what that determination looks like. But if we want to work through it. We want it to be a collaborative discussion, so that we can try to come to some sort of mutually agreeable solution, because it's your child's education and we understand that. It's your student that we're talking about, and we really do understand. So we want to have your input with all of that. So let us know, what is it you disagree with? What specifically are you concerned about within that evaluation? Is it the eligibility category that we're talking about? Is it the areas in which that they may qualify for services in? Is it a specific piece within someone's report that you didn't like the wording? I know that can get nitpicky, but again, it's your child's educational record, so that's okay to be nitpicky and to be reading through those things with a fine-tooth comb. We want to work together and encourage you to help us find those mutually agreeable solutions. If we still can't come to a mutually agreeable solution at that meeting, that's okay. From there, we will talk about what those next steps look like. It is case by case. So always make sure you're letting your special education coordinator, school psychologist, and team members know, so we can figure out where we go from here and work together through those processes. So after we qualify your student, then we get through everything. Next step comes your IEP meeting. And so this is where Scott comes back in.
So you've sat through, the planning meeting, we've determined eligibility, and then we get into the IEP development. So The team comes together, usually at a meeting like this. The school psychologist, once they do their eligibility determination, they usually kind of step away from the process, and the school-based team, the required members of the school-based team is going to be a district representative. That's going to be in Pickerington, this is going to be your special education coordinator. A general education teacher, which is going to be your child's classroom teacher, be it a first grade, third grade. It could be their science or math teacher if you're at the, one of the junior highs or high schools. It's going to include a special education teacher. That's your child's teacher of record, the intervention specialist that's working with them. And depending on the grade level, that could be one person or that could be more than one person. I know at Ridgeview, some of our IEPs have 3 or 4 intervention specialists that have worked on it, because there's an intervention specialist in this class and this class and this class. So they're all providing information to be included. Parents are one of our important team members. We also like to invite the students when it's appropriate. Obviously, we're not going to expect that a kindergartner is going to be sitting in a meeting for an hour and be able to, one, focus for that long, and 2, contribute to, they can say what they need and want. But we're going to have, spoken to them ahead of time. This is kind of more comes in at, the junior high and high school level, especially once they start pushing into like 10th and 11th grade. We want to start including them in that discussion. So you're an equal team member. What is the, expectation, or what are we asking you to contribute? We're going to share with you ahead of time. We try, at least. It doesn't always work out that way. We want to share with you a draft copy of the IEP ahead of time. That gives you the opportunity to, the IEP itself is a working document, but sharing a draft ahead of time kind of respects everybody's time. It lets you see kind of what the school-based team is seeing at school, what they're thinking in terms of goals and objectives, accommodations, services and supports, things like that. The IEP document can be a very daunting document. It can be, 30 pages at times. It can be 10 pages at times. So there's a lot of things going on with it. But we want your input in, if you're seeing, hey, my child is not decoding words very well at home. Like, what are we, what can we do to help in that situation? So provide the input in that. Hey, I've noticed that, my child responds really well to doing things when he has a fidget in his hand. So, that's useful information for us to have. Advocate for, hey, they're writing really, really big letters or holding their pencil in a way that we don't, typically see. Chances are your classroom teachers have probably seen that too. And they may be, working with the occupational therapist or the speech pathologist if there's communication needs. So just providing your input into all of that. What are some other things that you can provide? Like we said, your child better than anyone. Tell us what their strengths and talents are. What are they doing outside of school? Are they learning the piano? Are they playing soccer? Are they, insert any other activity that your child finds to be great at the time. What are you seeing as motivating to them? Again, them better than anyone. How does your child handle changes or stress? We know that everyone handles things a little differently. I mean, think about you as an adult. You break from your daily routine and it kind of throws a wrench into everything. So we understand that happens to kids too. You see that and you can provide information on how that works. And what's your vision for your child's future? There's a long-term vision. There's a short-term vision. The IEP document spans 1 calendar year. We kind of get stuck in education thinking school year to school year, but this document, if we write one today, it's going to be reviewed again next year. But just remember, it's a living, breathing document. So if it's ever not meeting the needs of your child, reach out to the intervention specialist and say, hey, I think we need to have a team meeting and, talk about that. So the next thing that comes into play when after we've determined eligibility, is we want to find the least restrictive environment. We as a school district are responsible for educating your child in the least restrictive way possible. So the least restrictive way being the regular education classroom with essentially no support. Think of that as the least restrictive. The most restrictive could be a school district, or not a school district, a separate school. So think like the Ohio State School for the Blind or the School for the Deaf. That's going to be an extreme restrictive environment. And we want to try and find what that least restrictive environment. So we're going to kind of work through a continuum of services. We're going to look at, can they be supported in the regular education classroom with modifications and supports from an intervention specialist? Do they require a little bit more support than that? Maybe they, would be best served in, kind of a special education classroom for part of the day, or a regular education classroom for part of the day. It just kind of depends on each student. It's a case-by-case thing. We look at the full picture before we make any decisions. Ask questions about how and where services are going to be provided. You're entitled to that information. Easy, open communication to fully understand the placement. And also, the biggest thing is once we qualify a student and we make a decision on where we're going to place them, say we're going to put them in the general education classroom with some supports. And then we come to find out, 6 months, a year from now, that maybe that's not the most appropriate place for them. And we start talking about changing the placement. Any changes to the student's placement require your consent. The school district can't just, say, hey, we're going to move your daughter today from this classroom into the special education classroom all day. Doesn't work like that. We have to have a team meeting. And my philosophy on this, if you're working in one of my buildings, this should never be a surprise. We should have had these discussions. It should be information that's being shared by the classroom teacher, by the intervention specialist. These are open communications. So the biggest takeaway is, open communication is our best friend in the special education process. And then the next step is ongoing monitoring. So in the IEP, we're going to talk about goals for the year. And part of that is going to be how often are we going to report that information out to you? The hope is that, your teachers are communicating regularly with you. If you expect that and want that, by all means, reach out to the teacher. They may not, everyone has different expectations for their children. Some parents, a B is not acceptable, and some parents are super excited when their child gets a B. So, if that's, setting your expectations with your child's teacher, that's an important aspect as well. Reviewing progress reports regularly. The school district is going to send every 9 weeks, they're going to send an updated progress report on how the student has progressed through their goals through that 9-week period. It usually comes out around grade card time. Usually our teachers need a little bit of time to get that information together after grades come out, but they will send that information to you. It'll come usually around, so you should be receiving those. If you have a child on an IEP, you should be receiving those sometime in the next couple of days. If the needs of your child change, request a meeting. We know that the needs of the children change as they kind of move through school or as life happens. There are things that happen outside of school that can affect kids. So request a meeting if your child's needs change. Communication open with the teachers and service providers. Communicate with the teachers, the IS, the occupational therapist, the speech pathologist, all the people that are involved. The earlier we know about something, the sooner we can work to find a solution. So if we aren't seeing something and you are, let us know so that we can, keep an eye on that. And then the next step, like I have already mentioned, the lovely procedural safeguards document. I'm looking at a copy of it now. It's 36 pages long. I'm going to plop it in here just so that there's a link to it if you would like to see it. You should be receiving a copy of that at least annually. You can also request them. They're also available online. And this outlines your rights. So some of the rights that are in here, you have access to your child's educational record. You can request a copy of the IEP. You can check their grades. You have access to all that information. We are also required to send a prior written notice with anything that we do. So you have an annual IEP meeting, and we will send you a notice that's kind of a summary of the meeting, what the decisions were made. We will send that to you before anything happens. So if we had an IEP meeting today, you should have received that document today before the IEP meeting before the IEP starts tomorrow. The procedural safeguards document also outlines resolution solutions. And these safeguards protect your child's rights to a free and appropriate education. We will share like I said, share these documents with you at least annually. You may see them more than that. I know they're linked in my email signature. They're probably linked in Jessica's email signature. You probably will receive them more often than you notice. And again, they're available online. The Ohio Department of Education shares them in many different languages. So if English is not your first language, they're available in, I want to say, 20 plus languages. And then the last step of the process is once students in Ohio reach the age of 14, we start talking about transition plans. So this kind of happens 7th, 8th grade. You'll see those start to kind of creep up. It's section 5 in the IEP. If you have younger children, a lot of times the IS will make a comment about your student's not 14 and they just kind of move right past it. This only applies when someone's 14, and it starts getting students thinking about what they're going to do after high school, be it college, be it career center, job training, the military, whatever they decide to do. Just kind of gets them an idea thinking about it, and it gives us an idea of where we can help them through the process. So if they're looking at going to college, we can help them research some colleges. We can help them research some budgeting things. There are 3 different categories that we're looking at. Post-secondary education and training. So that's your college, your career centers, your military, things like that. There's employment. What are you going to do after you get that 2 or 4 year degree or go to trade school or whatever? And then we're looking at independent living. So that's how is a student going to live outside of high school after they hopefully move out of your house and out of your basement and all of that. So we're going to try and help them think about those things. The biggest thing is we want to encourage your child's self-advocacy. This gets them thinking about what they're going to do for the future and kind of puts a little bit of the ownership on their future plans on them, and gets them thinking. How can you be an effective participant? Like I said, your IS is hopefully sharing the documents with you ahead of time as a draft. You can take the time to review those, write up any questions. If you're concerned about grades, share what you're concerned about. If you're seeing a bunch of missing assignments, share that information. Bring notes and supporting documents. If you went to the physician over the summer and they diagnosed your child with a medical condition, ADHD or allergies or some other medical condition, send that information to us. We can include that. We want to know that information so that we can help your child the best way that we can. Keep the school-based team updated about any developments with your child. If you're kind of, I'll use ADHD as the example because that seems to be a recurring theme. ADHD, if you're doing the medication thing and you're trying to dial in that medication or you're trying to stop that medication, let us know so that we know that, hey, Susie was taking medication for ADHD and now she's not. So we're going to see a change in that behavior. Or if, they're going through some therapies or anything, anything that could be pertinent to seeing information, seeing how they are progressing at school. We want to focus on solutions. And we also want to celebrate your child's progress. We know that a lot of kids make a lot of progress through the IEP process. So we want to celebrate when they're making a progress. And that kind of brings us to the end. We have a link here again for the post survey. If everyone could take a minute and do the QR code there, and I will drop in the link as well. Okay. There's the posted link as well. We want to thank everyone for taking the time to come and listen to Jessica and I and get a better understanding of what this process looks like. And hopefully you take advantage of some of the fun things that are happening around Pickerington tonight. I know Heritage was doing a trunk or treat, and I think the Haunted Village was going on downtown. And again, by all means, if any question popped up that relates to your child specifically, reach out to either Jessica or I, or your child's teachers. The building secretaries even know who their coordinators are and can kind of get you pointed in the right direction. We can get those questions answered for you. Jessica, if you want to go ahead and end the call. And
all right. Well, thank you, everybody. Hopefully you took some helpful information away. If you need any other supports or anything, feel free to let anyone that we've mentioned, Scott, myself, Allison, Malika, or your buildings coordinator know. We're happy to help and collaborate with you however we can. I hope everyone has a great evening, and happy Halloween to anyone who celebrates.